Hi, welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and thanks for watching. Well, he's the longest-serving United States Senator in Pennsylvania history. His name is Arlen Specter, and he's my special guest after these words.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Hi, welcome back to Pennsylvania Newsmakers. Now, we're going to have a little interview with Senator Specter, who dropped by. And joining me when I interview Senator Specter, as often is the case, is my colleague to the right, to your left, John Baer, columnist with the Philadelphia Daily News. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready, always ready.
All right, we're always ready. Senator, thanks for coming in. We appreciate your time. We know how busy you are, and thanks for coming in.
I'm not busy. I'm delighted to be here.
You better say you're busy.
I would say I'm busy if I was, but since I'm not, I won't.
Okay. Well, you're always candid.
I'm able to handle this job.
I think you can.
Done it for a long time, and
hope to do it a lot longer.
I take it in take it in stride, and don't profess to being busy. Profess to being relaxed, on the job, and ready.
There you go. There you go.
Before you get into a serious question, let me first of all congratulate you on the Pennsylvania Society Gold Medal in New York. It's quite an achievement. Usually they give that medal to somebody after they retire, but since everybody knows that's never going to happen. So you are going to run for re-election in 2010?
Absolutely.
All right. Terry?
Strom Thurmond, are you
planning to run, always have planned to run.
Whose record are you trying to beat here?
Nobody's, just as long as I'm fit and gaining seniority and able to do the job and help Pennsylvania and I think contribute to the country, I'm going to be in there pitching.
Yeah, well, good. Look, we have a bunch. We want to get around a lot of subjects, but I want to talk about Pakistan and the assassination of Benazir Bhutto. You were, in fact, on the ground ready to meet her, as we understand that. You can talk a little bit about that. But also, I want to get your sense about Pakistan, the instability, where all that goes.
Patrick Kennedy, representative from Rhode Island, and I were scheduled to meet her at 9 o'clock. She scheduled it late because she had campaigning all day. We were about to go see her and heard the news that she'd been assassinated. And it was obviously a terrible shock. And it was a terrible shock. I had known her personally to some extent. She was a glamorous person, but beyond that, she was intellectual. She had great political instincts. She came from a political family. Pakistan has been in the state of turmoil. She had an opportunity in the elections to be the new prime minister and to provide some stability. And right now, things are very difficult. We met with President Musharraf. We questioned him about putting the country without a civil order, putting the Chief Justice in suspension and house arrest. They've got nukes. They have real problems. I asked him about Osama bin Laden. We put up $10 billion since 2001, and we're concerned that they haven't used the money where it's been directed. So right now, it's a bad situation.
Do you think that, all things being even, that there should be some international force guarding the nuclear weapons that has been suggested by a number of people?
Well, I think it's very difficult to bring an international force in. That hasn't been done anywhere. But I think it's an option that has to be considered depending on what Musharraf is doing. We question him closely on that. And also question the ambassador and the military liaison. And their assurances are that they're safe. But it's pretty hard to go into a sovereign country and start to tell them what to do. And what is the competency of the UN on a question like that? If they were in U.S. hands, they'd be secure.
You've called for the United Nations to head up an investigation of the assassination. What's the status of that?
Well, I haven't heard from the Secretary General, but it appeared to me very promptly that that was necessary when I saw what was happening. An autopsy is a very tough thing to do, but you have to have one in a case like this. They're still arguing about President Kennedy's autopsy. They didn't investigate the crime scene. Doctors are complaining that they're being told not to talk. Doctors are complaining, who treated her, that their records are being confiscated. This whole situation is going to proliferate, and they're very ill-advised not to have an impartial inquiry drawing on the resources of Scotland Yard or the FBI or other national professionals. But this is a bad situation, and it's going to get worse.
Because without such an investigation, then the implication that the government was involved simply goes on.
The implication is that there's something to hide, and there are conflicting stories about how she died. And the government is contending that she stood up and really exposed herself, trying to remove the blame from lack of security. But what's the point in telling doctors who treated her not to talk? What's the point in confiscating medical records? Now, I don't know that that's true.
Before we...
but we got to find out.
Before we go on a break, I mean, look, the stability of Pakistan is critically important for a whole variety of reasons. Is whether or not there are elections and democracy prevails a more important concept than the security and safety of the nuclear weapons and the ability of the government to track down the al-Qaeda operatives that are obviously hiding in portions of Pakistan, or are these not mutually exclusive?
No, you're talking about really a common thread, and the common thread is competency. You certainly have to have the nuclear weapons under control. And the word is that the United States has spent a lot of money to accomplish that. And we can have some supervisory input into that. Then you have a question about the stability of the country. If you're going to run it as a dictatorship and suspend civil rights and put the Chief Justice under house arrest, then you don't have a democracy. So you have to have a government which can function. And the Musharraf government is wavering. Right now, it's the least of the undesirable alternatives, the least undesirable of the alternatives.
Okay, stay with us. We're going to take a break for our special interview with the United States Senator Arlen Specter after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Pennsylvania Medical Society. Doctors and patients, preserve the relationship. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Hi, welcome back to Pennsylvania Newsmakers with our special guest, Senator Arlen Specter. John Baer from the Philadelphia Daily News joins me in the questioning of the senator. John Baer.
Let's switch to the presidential race. Who's going to be the Republican nominee?
I don't know.
Who should it be?
Depends on too many undecided factors. I'm waiting to see how the campaigns unfold and who changes his position least frequently.
Do you have a candidate? Are you backing him?
I don't. There have been so many ups and downs and curlicues in the campaign that it seemed to me that I ought to keep my powder dry until the dust settles and we know what their positions are. You take a look at the positions of the candidates, and they change so frequently, it's hard to tell the players without a scorecard and without a punchline. And as somebody who has to be in a leadership position for the Republicans, I'm sounding out people around the state, but I want to see how the dust settles.
Yeah, I thought the best Republican line so far was Mike Huckabee accusing Mitt Romney of being the candidate of change, because he changes his position so often.
Well, Huckabee's got some nice lines, but those only go so far if you get to the Oval Office.
Do you think that a Republican candidate can win the presidency in 2008?
Yes.
Why?
Because there are so many unpredictable factors. And what looks secure one day changes. There was a long period of time when Senator Hillary Clinton looked like a shoo-in, and I saw the little activities on the Senate floor. Interesting to watch Hillary and Obama sort of like tigers in a cage on the Senate floor, and then Dodd and Biden off to the side, and then McCain over here, and occasionally Brownback. And then there was a time when Giuliani was flying sky high. And now you can't measure the depth of his submarine. And Huckabee, who ever heard of Huckabee? And who would have thought a few weeks ago that Mike Huckabee would save John McCain from Mitt Romney?
Yeah. Senator, if we can just take what John's questioning and turn it into our state, I mean, one of the reasons that you've won elections in this state is that you've been able to do reasonably well in Democratic cities, but you win the Philly suburbs where a huge chunk in the Lehigh Valley, a huge chunk of Pennsylvania voters live, and you do all right in the western Democratic part of the state. But your party has lost 4 straight presidential elections, I think, and maybe John would agree with me, because of the loss of support in the Philly burbs. Now, some of those candidates in your party are going to do better there than others. One of the reasons Giuliani polls so well is, I think, because he has more appeal to moderate voters. What's your sense about what your party has to do to win Pennsylvania?
Well, I think the party has to be more issue-oriented and less ideologically pure. The grave difficulty in American politics today is that the parties are controlled by the extremes. Here you have Connecticut, a superb senator like Joe Lieberman can't win a Democratic primary. And then with the strong record I've had in general elections and performance, in a primary election, I won 50.6 to 49.4. Well, the far right controls the Republicans and the far left the Democrats. And America is governed from the center. And you are correct, I do fine in a general election because I am issue-oriented. And I'm not going to be ideological. I am for tax cuts, and I am for the death penalty, and I'm for building barriers to protect our borders. But I'm also for education, and I'm also for National Institute of Health funding. There is an issue. The far right only wants to cut taxes. They're sore at me because I vote for money for NIH. But nobody knows better than I about health being our #1 capital asset. And the party position on NIH funding is just untenable. Right. And the party's not going to do well unless it is realistic and embraces some ideas that make sense.
All right, we're going to take a commercial break. We're interviewing Senator Arlen Specter. John Baer and I will be back in a moment after a break.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the State System of Higher Education. 14 state-owned universities. The state system is the largest provider of higher education in Pennsylvania. And by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, working towards a healthy Pennsylvania.
Hi, welcome back to Pennsylvania Newsmakers. Our special guest is Senator Arlen Specter. John Baer from the Philadelphia Daily News and I are chatting with the senator. Before we move on to another subject, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Democratic race. I know you're a Republican, but you know Senator Clinton and Senator Obama. If Senator Obama were to win the nomination, and he's on this real tear at the moment, that 2 years in the Senate, virtually no record, 6 years in the Illinois State Senate, it would be almost unparalleled in American history to have someone elected with that little experience. You think that's a long-term problem for Senator Obama? Well,
I think that it's difficult to entrust the red telephone to somebody who has a limited experience, but this is a democracy. And you have public reaction, and it's well publicized how little experience he has. And if the voters support him, that's democracy. We have a new word in American politics. It's called transformational. And it had no definition until Senator Obama came upon the scene, and now he's a transformational candidate. And it has taken him under its control. I've seen a fair amount of him. First day he was sworn in, we have offices down the hall, and I see a lot of them, and worked with him on some issues. And it's as big a surprise to him as it is to America.
I would imagine, because there's no huge record. I mean, someone like you, you've got countless pieces of legislation that you sponsored and experience. I just wonder at some point whether the lack of experience, you know, particularly if you get against someone like a Senator McCain on the national security issues, becomes a serious liability.
That's when you asked the question earlier, John did, can a Republican win? If Senator Obama is the candidate, there's going to be a lot more scrutiny of his lack of a record and lack of experience. And if he's up against John McCain, there'll be a very, very sharp contrast. And we will see.
Well, let me ask you this: if the Obama thing continues, and if it does continue, it will continue on this wave of change. Somehow he has convinced people he's an outsider to the process. Will that inform the Republican debate? Will the Republican Party look to nominate someone maybe outside of Washington?
I do not think so. I do not think that you have that kind of an issue which is sharply posed. I think right now it is doubtful if former Governor Mike Huckabee will sustain where he is. Former Governor Romney does not look strong. Former Senator Thompson has not performed, so that John McCain is emerging at this point. So we will see if there's somebody else in the picture. And John McCain is Washington. But John McCain is Washington in a somewhat different way. That is, he's not an insider's insider. He's not a part of the traditional political structure. He's more of an independent. He more speaks his own mind.
But in a sense, that's not all that different from you. I mean, you were, met with the leadership on behalf of the moderates. I mean, you've had that same problem, not problem, but you've been in that same situation, going into your own caucus, arguing often against the grain and the prevailing tide with the conservatives in your own party. True, not true?
No, that's true. But it's been largely forgotten that I spent 16 months running for the 96 nomination, went to 32 states. And I had no illusions about winning the nomination, but I was trying to move the party to the center. And in New Hampshire, there were 9 people on the stage, and the question was, who's in favor of abolishing the Department of Education? And 8 hands shot up. I was the only one who said, no, you can't abolish the Department of Education. But those 8 answers were playing to the extremists.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, that was the answer they all wanted to hear.
Right.
And the positions that I took were not traditional positions.
All right, we'll be back in a moment with our exclusive interview with Senator Arlen Specter.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Highmark Blue Shield, changing the way health plans work for business with a variety of plan options for employers and more choices for employees. Information is available at highmark.com. Have a greater hand in your company's health. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, the future of long-term care. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Penn Future, where we believe that every environmental victory grows the economy, and by the Pennsylvania Cyber Charter School, bringing educational innovation and freedom to the children of Pennsylvania.
Hi, welcome back to Pennsylvania Newsmakers with our interview with Senator Arlen Specter. John Baer.
Senator, 2 quick things on the Republican presidential side. Has Rudy Giuliani made a fatal mistake in the strategy that he chose to run these primaries?
I think that it may not be fatal, but at the moment it's serious because there's so much bounce from Iowa. If you stay out, you lose that. And New Hampshire also is a big bounce, and Giuliani has figured on Florida, California, New York, and New Jersey, and they come so late that he may not be breathing at that point.
You think he could be done before Super Duper Tuesday?
It's hard to say. He may not be done, but he might not be attractive if they keep having stories like the New York Times today, which says They ask him in New Hampshire snow, why are you running so badly here? So that's deflating, and that hurts on fundraising. It also hurts with the public.
And what's your opinion of the prospect of an independent run, a third-party run by Mayor Bloomberg?
Well, I think it's very difficult to do, but I do not think it is an impossibility. And I say that because American politics today is so uncertain. It is very unpredictable. They've had a number of developments which are just really astounding. The meteoric rise of Barack Obama, the comet-like appearance, not quite a meteor, but a comet of Mike Huckabee, the descent of Giuliani, the wavering of Senator Clinton. And Mayor Mike Bloomberg is an extraordinarily competent guy.
And popular.
I prefer to talk about his competency. Popularity comes and goes. Competency stays. But he's got a lot of money. And he can finance a campaign out of his vest pocket. And it's well known that he changed to an independent at critically the right time, and he has a very complex Chinese puzzle or complex puzzle out there of qualifying in all these states, and he could be an absolute wild card. And he could end up closer to the center. But we don't know a whole lot about Bloomberg's national politics. So that when you want to make predictions, you need to know facts. You need to know where people stand, and you need to see how a campaign progresses. And that's why there is a lot of uncertainty, even if Obama is the Democratic nominee. Less uncertainty with the McCain nomination, because you know where he stands. A lot of uncertainty with the potential Bloomberg nomination. But they're meeting in Oklahoma, and they brought together a lot of centrists, and this is the great national pastime, and I haven't seen so much public interest in a campaign in modern times.
Yeah, we're almost out of time. It looks like we're going to have another record turnout. 120 million people voted in 2004, and look at the interest in these early primaries. Tremendous public interest. Are you seeing that when you get around, talk about politics?
Yeah, and that means it's a wild card. And the opportunities to evaluate on traditional patterns is not present. So fasten your seatbelt. Yep. Stay tuned.
Senator,
metaphors.
Thanks for coming in. John, thanks as always. All right, we'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmaker, and as always, stay well.